Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Cordero, and I'm a holistic life coach. You are tuning in to Diving Deep with Denise. This is an amazing, awesome sisterhood where we get to have just raw and authentic conversations about all expressions of what it is to be embodied as a woman, all of our pain, our suffering, our healing journey, and of course, our triumphs. This is part of our premiere here, and I said that I wanted to have some special guests, and they're all special to me because they have been a part of my healing journey, a special part of my life in some way or another. And today we brought on Miss Angela Crawford, well, Mrs. Angela Crawford, lovingly known as Angie. And she came into my life when we studied life coaching together. And we have been friends ever since. And it has been amazing to have this beautiful sister as part of my life where we can continue to come together, reconnect. It doesn't matter if it's been a week or if it's been a month or it's been a year. It seems like time hasn't passed, and we really enjoy the conversations, the commonalities, and I always learn something. So I'd like to give her a proper introduction, and I may cut off some things from here, Angie, because you're a whole lot of woman, lady, a whole lot of woman. So Mrs. Angela Crawford lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love. She is married to a very supportive husband for 27 years, and they have three grown and phenomenal children, 28, 24, and 20. Angela has been an educator for 24 years. Her work with the school district of Philadelphia has offered various teacher leadership opportunities as a teacher, leader, facilitator, and English teacher. Angela is also an organizer, activist of racial and social justice education. She is the co-author and organizer for anti-racism, anti-bias training. Angie has facilitated and presented on topics such as colorism, education for liberation, and other educational topics. In addition, she is the co-founder of the Melanated Educators Collective, where they provide support to other teachers of color, parents, and youth. Angela educates outside of traditional academic arenas. She's a practitioner and holistic healer, certified holistic health coach, personal trainer, and energy life coach. She is also a strong advocate for holistic health and wellness. She inspires and partners with path seekers to resolve pressing issues and challenges which divert clients from their journey. What more can I say? I could go on and on and on. And for all those that want to get to know Angie and about Angie and all the work that she does, you can visit her whole bio on the podcast notes. They'll be available on Spotify. This will be available on YouTube, on Instagram, on my webpage, denisecordero.com. But turning back to Angie, welcome. Thank you for being on this program. Thank you for being here and reconnecting with me and being part of this new journey with me.
Thank you, Denise, for inviting me and having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. As you already stated, it doesn't matter the distance and time, we just get right back into it. So I appreciate you, and I'm loving this new journey. I'm loving it. So let's get to it. I wanna hear these questions, girl.
Oh my goodness. Well, the good thing, so I just want to continue what we were talking about offline. I think that is so important. You as this amazing educator in a city um, being a woman of color, and there's so much going on right now. And one of the things that I said, Angie, I'm going to be honest with you. I need an education. Because as a Latina woman and as a first generation of American of, you know, Latino parents that are from Dominican Republic, my parents never really focused on culture and ethnicity. My parents um, really focused on, you're an American, live as an American, have an education, you know, make us proud, you know, make us proud parents as a daughter. And I went through all my life not really noticing much that I am a brown girl. You know, I had a whitewashed education and I became whitewashed as a person, and I passed as a white, you know, white girl that spoke broken Spanish and never really gave much thought to it. And I think that the reason that I did that, and almost ashamed to say, is um, I believed that acting white or being more white would make me more successful. Like, I didn't want to be that person that people would stereotype. I didn't want to be that person that um, people were going to give a side eye to because the color of my skin. And so because it was easy for me and I can pass off as a white person, then I sort of personified that. And I didn't correct that. But I've come to a place in my life where I can no longer ignore that, hello, I'm not white. Okay, I need to acknowledge that I am a Latina woman, and that my parents are immigrants and they are from Dominican Republic, that we are melanated in all different shades, and that I am a part of this movement. I am a part of the anti-racism movement, that I am part of the Black Life Matters movement. And I want to be more active, and I want to be educated and understand my roots and where I've come from, and help my brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I think, well, a couple of things you mentioned, and you mentioned your parents, and generationally, as a parent, we don't never have like this handbook on what to do to be parents, right? So we're thinking like, how do I give my child the best possible life so they don't repeat the cycles of my life, right? So, your parents did the same thing, because trust me, we've all had levels of indoctrination where we thought that if we follow the standards that Europeans in this country set, that it would propel us to this American dream, that we would get this house and this picket fence, and we would get this great job and be successful and have money. That didn't happen, right? So we understand we were told to do that. We were told to, be well behaved in school, get good grades, go to college, and then life will be set for you. So our parents, well, one, even for your parents, like not really even understanding the structure of how America is built. They wouldn't know that, right? So they see like, we're poor here, but if you come here, you can have a better life. So that's what they push for, right? And and as parents, that's what we push for. We want our kids to do better than we did. We want them to be good people. We want them to be successful and be self-sufficient and all that kind of stuff like that. But when we get here, we now can see, and also there's the amount of technology we have now, your parents didn't have access to as well, right? So that also is a factor to consider, right? So, but moving forward, if we're coming to school and we are indoctrinated to believe these ideas. Like we have this our educational system where it's like we are piggy banks and the teacher's supposed to deposit the coins in there and you supposed to just regurgitate what they said. No one is trained folks to be critical thinkers, to question. Think about it. If you ever question or if you've seen a classmate question a teacher, they typically got in trouble, right? So it's this control factor, it's this fear. And if we think about it, that's every institution in America, right? Because America is based off of certain ideologies: white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy. Those three ideologies are upheld by every single institution in this country. If we think about, if you remember going back to school, like who was the good authors and who were good writers, they typically were all dead white men now, right? They were all, so now you have the under the impression that, well, only these people are good readers and good writers. They're all white. So I can't possibly be a good reader or good writer because everybody that I'm being told to read or shown does not look like me. So now we also got like psychological warfare going on too, because now psychologically I'm believing this brainwash, right? If we go through, everyone go to college. So what happens when you go into college? You get a major debt because our parents are Rockefellers and they can't say college is paid for, right? Or they haven't made large donations to PWI, predominantly white institutions, and to say, I'm going to build a library and then now my child goes free. Like that's just not our reality. So then we go to college and we get into debt, and that debt keeps us propelled in the same pretty much economic status anyway, because our debt ratio is higher. Everything that we're taught, if we go to an institution and we try to get a mortgage, they kind of streamline you to, oh, let's look at this area. Oh no, these houses over here are, are priced out of your arrangement, out of your qualifications, simply because we have redlining going on. So we have financial laws, we have educational institutions, we know that we have our judicial system is screwed, because Dylan can walk out of a church from killing 9 people and not be handcuffed, then take to Burger King to get something to eat, and then go to jail and be processed, where had that person looked like me, they wouldn't have made it out of the church, if they went to kill 9 people in a white church, right? It just would never happen. And time again, we see these things displayed on our TV screens and our phones, like with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, who those police still have not been arrested to date. So we have these issues to concern. We already know that our judicial system isn't fair. Our educational system isn't fair. It's not funded correctly. When we go for housing, we know that housing isn't fair. So, those are just 3 institutions. But every institution in this country upholds white supremacy. And if you look at the top, who's leading and running it is all white men. And they make these rules and they make these laws. And those laws can be very sexist and oppressive to women. We have a leader in DC right now, prior to him winning the election, was getting ready to go up for a case on rape. So it's okay to grope women, to rape women, keep women's voices suppressed, because it is about white men holding power and control. Okay, so we got white supremacy, we got patriarchy, and then we have capitalism. If, people are gaslighting teachers right now for saying like, hey, we shouldn't be opening the school back. Schools aren't cleaned properly, pre-COVID, and now we have to have extra cleaning measurements with COVID, and maybe this is not right. And people say, oh, teachers are just being greedy. They want longer time off. And no, at the end of the day, we have a system of how much money can we make, because the top 2% are going to stay the top 2%.
Yes.
And they're going to make sure that they are able to continue being the top 2%. So we don't care about your lives. So it's, in this country, it's always capitalism over humanity. Let's face it, this country is built off the back of enslaved people as property for them to grow America and profit off of the labor of enslaved Africans, so that they can become the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and all these people with this old money that stay the top 2%. So the money that they're still making has been generated off the back of enslaved people in this country and indigenous people, as they took the land from indigenous people and raped them and brutalized them and terrorized them. So, but nowhere in school do you ever hear about how white people in this country are terrorists, right? You hear about they make it seem like they're the innocent, and
Right.
Black people are the guilty, but that's not the case. Like indigenous people are the bad people, and white people came in to save them, and they're the innocent. No, and I take this word innocence from James Baldwin, as he talks about and describes how they play this victim role and they be the innocent, and everybody else is now the fault, or the criminal has been criminalized because of the systematic structural racism in our country. So it is no wonder that millions of people are brainwashed and indoctrinated into a belief that white people are the only good people in this country. They're the only people that contribute anything in this country, and so forth. And and because history has not been told correctly, because the power to be writes the history. So all white men who are rich and believe in capitalism and are going to uphold white supremacy are never going to tell about the atrocities that they did. They're always going to come in and say, we came in on a white horse and cape and saved these people. And it's not our fault that they don't want to be saved and they just want to stay ignorant. And so this, racism is a construct. It is a man-made belief, but the practices and beliefs are not man-made. They are very real, and the implications of people's thoughts and ideologies have been very violent and harmful to melanated people. And I think sometimes the country has seen, even Latinas or Latinx people even are starting to see that, because I know in history, through this American history, a lot of Latino people put white on the census, right? So they kind of...
We don't have a race. Can you believe that shit? We
Right.
don't have a race, Angie. It's like, what the hell do I'm Black, I'm white, I'm indigenous, because I'm like, it's confusing to me.
Right, but most of them choose to say white because, for the same reasons your parents told you,
I'm guilty.
to be
I'm
American,
guilty.
right?
I am
Right
guilty.
on that census.
I am American,
but
yes.
I think it hit too when the hurricane hit Puerto Rico and no one came. America didn't come, and even though Puerto Rico is a part of the United States, but American government did not come and save Puerto Rico. And now it's like, huh? So now we have to now sit. People have to now sit with it like, oh, I thought I would be considered, because we know that he has come to save other places that were mostly white. He didn't come to save Puerto Rico, right? And then he now comes with like, we're going to put this wall up because we don't want these immigrants coming over from Mexico into our country because they are raping our children and stealing our jobs. So now we have more Latinos saying, looking cross-eyed, like, no, I'm Republican. No, I'm good. I'm American. I come and I'm using the same principles that I learned so I can be a good American. But America doesn't look at you that we gotta put this wall up, and we want Mexico to pay for it to go up. So we got Puerto Rico, or we got Mexico, right? And now those things are happening. And, you know, when we look at these type of events in the world, I'm happy that you're reflecting and saying, you know what? I've been duped. I've been bamboozled, because here I am thinking, and I'm not just saying you, but it's like many others too. Like,
yes,
here I've been thinking that if I do all these things to be American, I will be accepted to be American. Well, guess what? Black people have been doing the same thing too, trying to be American, right? If I do these things, then I should be on equal playing field, because I followed America's moral standard. You know, I did well in school. I got a job. You know, I may have a quote unquote good job. I moved out of the neighborhood and I moved into the suburbs because I can afford to live amongst white
That's
people.
right. I'm
But
in
then
the
I go to
burbs.
the white store and a white market. They're looking at me like, why am I here? But I'm like, hey, you know, I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I'm an executive. I'm this. I earned the right to live in this neighborhood because I can afford to pay for it, and I can afford to be in your stores, and I can afford to drive this car, until you get pulled over in your Mercedes driving through your very affluent neighborhood by a cop who now is going to interrogate you because they think that you're coming into this neighborhood because you don't belong to do wrong when you own a house there. And so millions of people have been duped. Black people, Latino people, have been duped. And I am hoping that, you know, a lot of people are upset about the uprisings. I'm actually happy that the uprisings happened, because it is starting to make people look. And even though there's a lot of symbolic changes, which I'm not impressed by, I'm not impressed with the NFL saying we're going to sing, lift every voice and sing as the song. No, you know, first of all, you need to make atonement for Colin Kaepernick, because he took a knee and to stand up against injustices in this country. So you're going to pacify it and put a Band-Aid over it and say, hey, we're going to sing James Weldon Johnson's Lift Every Voice and Sing. No, you don't get a kudos and a clap from me. These other organizations saying, hey, we're going to allow you to write Black Lives Matter on the street, or we're going to give you a symbolic where the cops are kneeling and the cops is hugging and everybody is kumbaya. That means nothing to me until policies and laws and curriculums are changed. And those are the meaningful things that need to happen, because then it's not going to change people's attitudes and behaviors right away. But what it will do over time is start to change behaviors, because you won't be able to get away with what you get away with in this country the way it is now. So policies need to be created, humanitarian policies, because many of the policies created are solely to benefit white folks. But the problem is you're going to always catch this resistance, because now if white people acknowledge their privilege and their power, and now you're telling them they're going to have to shift and give it away some, the fight is going to be there, because I want to keep the power for me, and I don't care about anybody else, because people are, people call the man in the 1600 narcissistic, but lots of people have that tendency and that attribute, because I don't want to give away my power and privilege so that you can have equality. I'm not going to do that. So, that's still wrong. That's still, to me, an assault on humanity, because once you feel as though as a human being that you should have power or privilege over another human being, that's a problem. It's a huge problem. So yes, I need policies, curriculum, and laws to change. So therefore, over time, the domino effect is for behaviors and attitudes to change, because if not, I don't think the world is ready to see to have these uprisings amplified into an all-out, inferno. You know, it is definitely time for America to atone and repay its biggest sins. So yeah, it's definitely time, and that needs to happen. And yes, people are out there joining book clubs, Black-owned bookstores for probably the first time ever are having record number of businesses selling out of books because you have tons of white people who want to read. And I think that's great. And the work has to start within us, but it can't stop there. It can't stop from doing the reading and doing the work inside, but it also means to be anti-racist means that when you're at dinner at Thanksgiving and a family member says something racist, that you speak up and you stand against it. It doesn't mean like, oh, well, they're just older and that's what they're going to believe. Because you allow the racist attitudes and behaviors and beliefs to perpetuate. Being anti-racist meaning, stand up, speak up, say something, work to make this better, because silence equals violence. When you don't say anything, violent attacks continue to happen in every aspect of every institution in this country against people of color, particularly Black and brown people. And it has to stop there.
Thank you for that, Angie. Now, you've been an educator for many, many years, and you have an active and powerful voice with your students and with your peers and your colleagues. Are you seeing the change within the school system? If you're not, where are the barriers? Where are the barriers for us to see the change?
Well, again, school systems are systems and they're institutions. So it really has to start at the top. But we also need people to say, you know what? All we're doing is looking at numbers on kids. We don't care about kids. Let's test. We don't take in the trauma of situations in their lives and in their communities and their environments. We're not even looking at trauma from COVID, right? This whole pandemic has been a very traumatic experience for most people. So if it's a traumatic experience for adults, it's a traumatic experience for children. And people sometimes have this attitude that, oh, kids don't have problems. They're not that deep. They're not paying attention. But they are so far from the truth. Our kids are traumatized, and they have been traumatized for a long time, and some of them been traumatized even more than others, just in their homes, in their communities. Gun violence is high. And it but we have Black on Black crime per se, even though that is a construct too, because typically most white people who are killed are mostly killed by white people. Asian people are mostly killed by Asian people. So Black people are mostly killed by Black people. Very simple reason. Who do you see the most of the time? Who do you live with most of the time? Hurt people. And if I live in an all Black community and I'm hurt, the hurt is going to happen to another Black person. If I'm white and I'm hurt, the hurt is going to happen to another white person. If I'm Latino and I live in a Latino neighborhood, another Latino is going to be hurt because I'm hurt. That's and so forth and so forth, right? So we have to get out this made up construct again of Black on Black crime, because it's no such, it's not real. It is wording that is used to, again, demonize the Black community. And so even learning the context of words and the coded messages of words is something that everyone needs to learn too. But let me just go back to the education piece. So breaking up those systems. I consider myself a revolutionary educator. And here's why I need more teachers to be revolutionary educators. If your books are teaching that Christopher Columbus discovered America and he came to save came to save the Indians, and I'm using air quotations here because they're indigenous people, and he came and cultivated them to show them the way because they were savages. I need teachers to stop teaching that, because you know that's a lie. You
Yes.
know that Christopher Columbus, if you don't know, you should know that he came over and he's a terrorist and he's a rapist and all those type of things, and he's a thief, right? Because you stole the land from
Of
the indigenous.
course.
You raped their women. You beheaded their women. You beheaded their men. You beheaded their children. Those are acts of terror.
And
So,
wiped out the Taino, basically the whole
exactly.
Taino
Complete
peoples.
genocide, right? So, besides being a murderer, a rapist, a terrorist, and thief, that is who Christopher Columbus is. But I can tell you, like, even in our anthology book for the 11th grade, and that book, they brought these series of books not too long ago. And the first story in the 11th grade book is about Christopher Columbus. And I looked at it, and I don't have a poker face, and I'm like, I don't think so. This is some bullshit. Then the second story is the Plymouth Plantation. Nope, we're not going to do this. Even in American history, when you talk about Black people who started slavery, we didn't start as slaves. We started the kings and queens in Africa. Okay, then we came from Africa, and there's a vast history of Africa and contributions to society that people still use today. There's a vast history of women, because Africa is a matriarch society, and women were running countries, but were oppressed and don't have a voice in America. But Black women were running countries in Africa, but we don't learn that history. All you do is you tell a child that Black people started in slavery, and again, psychological warfare, because you now have dehumanized and devalued the child, and that's very, very much done intentionally, because if you don't think better of yourself, how can you do better for yourself when your values of your view of yourself is so low? So all these things are very much intentional. So, but teachers need to change. But I need, and I'm going to be very explicit here, I need plenty of teachers to quit, to resign, because they commit violent acts on Black and brown children every time they step in the school and step in the classroom, and now step online virtually. They are to commit violent acts against Black and brown children, because many of them have very racist ideas. They say things like, oh, you need to get back on that boat, or just very, yeah. I can tell you, I could do so many different stories. Like in Philadelphia, and in Instagram, and these are some stories that happen. We have Blacks at Central High School, which is a Central's kind of like the one of the top rated public schools in Philadelphia, and kind of known, in the East Coast, and has very popular and well-to-do and wealthy alumni. But then you have Black kids who write in comments about their treatment. But then you have Blacks in the mainline who go to these very private schools that cost $30,000, $40,000 a year, and how they're being treated. So, this has been happening. I even as a first grader, I was one of 3 Blacks in a private Catholic school, and the treatment between teachers and students was very harmful. But like your parents, my parents also wanted a good education for me, but not even understanding the harm that was happening, the psychological and emotional harm that was happening to me in the building, right, and on the playground. So, what I need teachers to do, one, if you're not willing to work on your implicit bias and your racism, if you don't see that your power and your privilege has a negative impact on the students that you teach, and I don't care if they're white too, right? Because white children also need a better education. But if you don't see that, you need not to be teaching anybody's child from K through college, because you are committing acts of violence, and it is unacceptable, right? But if you are a teacher, and there are plenty who are working on, you know, I want to be a better person. I want to be an anti-racist. I want to check my bias. I want to do better. I want to be better for the sake of humanity. Then you also got to know that you got to have uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. Because just like in our life coaching or in our fitness world, you can't change your body or your mind unless you get uncomfortable about what's really going on inside of you for life coaching, right? You really got to get uncomfortable with your exercises, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And it's the same type of practice when you are trying to be an anti-racist person. You have to be uncomfortable and check to say, you know, what ideas were embedded in, you know, embedded in me growing up. You know, how do I contribute to perpetuating racist, white supremacist ideas, consciously and subconsciously? What do I need to do? So I need teachers to do that. Those who are not willing to do that, I need them to resign. And that's my nice word online. I have another word that I use offline, but online, my nice word is I need them to resign. And I need them to resign that, like, immediately. Okay, don't even wait to August. Just do it. Write your letter now, and quit. I need them to. So I need teachers to do that, because we have leadership at the top, and we have bottom up grassroots movements, and it's time for teachers to make this bottom up, you know, changes here to kind of push the organization of schooling to be different. So, you know, now we got schools talking about, oh yeah, I'm gonna get anti-racist training, and it can't be like this checklist, like, oh, check, we've done this. No, like even the anti-racist that I help do is a 20-hour anti-racist training, and you got to get into your feelings. You got to do some inner work. Like, this work is hard. You know, you got to do some work.
It's not about just the check marks. You have to do the work.
No. You can't just say we had diversity training, check. Oh, we did this, check. That is not acceptable. That is the same as the symbolic kumbaya type. I'm gonna take a knee, or we're gonna sing the Black National Anthem. It's the same exact thing. You have to do the work, and you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And you also have to. I need white people to stop censoring themselves, because, you know, well, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and I did. The color of your skin made things easier for you. So I don't want to hear you didn't have a lot of money. You know, that may be the case. But the moment I walk in the door, my skin has already been weaponized against me. Why is she in my store? Why is she here? Does she belong in this neighborhood? My skin. You have no idea how much money I make. You have no idea what I can afford or what I can afford not to buy. So you make an assumption off the color of my skin. Oh, my kid goes to this school. Well, how do they afford? Oh, they must be scholarship kids. You have no idea if I can write a check and pay for the whole year for my kids' tuition. You have no idea. But people make assumptions because of the color of the skin. When Black men walk out into the world, you make an assumption, you know, especially white women. We got to stop with these Karens and these Amy Coopers that I'm going to call, because the moment you call, you know that you can have a Black man killed because you made a phone call. You think in your mind that, oh, they're coming for me, they're dangerous, they must want my body. That is not the case. That is far from the case. And as we can use an example of Emmett Till, who was the 14-year-old boy who was brutally murdered by a gang of a white mob, who was tarred and burned and murdered at 14 years old, for the woman who said that he looked at her or winked at her at 80-something years old, to come out and say that never happened and she lied. And you had white men go out and kill this young man, and his life was brutally taken at 14 because over a lie. Amy Cooper The lady with the dog, she's choking the dog. And if you ever listen to the video, how she changes her voice and her voice becomes more frightened as he videotapes that she calls the cops. And like, I need to give you an Academy Award for acting? Because this is all an act. And historically, white women have been acting, but the consequences of their act have been black men being lynched, murdered, killed, drowned, tarred, burned, castrated because of a lie. And unfortunately, 88% of teachers coming in to teach are white women who are scared of black and brown boys in the classroom. A white woman coming in who's 5'2", teaches 10th grade, may encounter a 15-year-old who is 6'1", 6'2" years old. And because, and God forsake, we talk about colorism, and if his complexion is dark and he's big, he's still a child, but you will call, and then if the world looks at him as a man. But a 15-year-old white teenager is not looked as a man. He is looked at as, oh, he was just this, quirky little kid who loved this, that, and the other. But a 15-year-old black boy can't be a quirky little kid who just loved to play football and, loved his mother too. Like that, those two things can't be synonymous in this country. But those teachers look at that student much differently, or much quicker to call school police, which is why you see nationwide this whole uprising to defund police, get rid of school police, get rid of school security, however you want to label them, because they are criminalizing black and brown children in school. Does wearing a hoodie constitute me as being a murderer? For black and brown children to do. So you asking about what can happen in the education system. I got a real answer for that too. However, I'm not going to say that one on the air. But what I will say is
this is a safe space. We can say anything here.
I feel comfortable saying it, but here's what I'll just change the wording of it. What needs to happen is school reform is not the answer. Police reform is not the answer. Anything with the word reform in it is not the answer. Re means again. And it implies that it was right at one time. Nothing in this country since the origins of America has been right for black and brown people. So the hell with the word reform. It needs to be completely demolished and start again, because it can't be transformed. It can't be reformed. It needs a brand new structure where the makeup of the foundation looks completely different than the foundation on which this country has been built upon and built on. And it needs a complete tear down of the ideologies that I mentioned earlier in this country, because we can no longer uphold white supremacy, capitalism, and patriarchy in this country. We just cannot afford to do that if we are going to, if we're going to live peacefully in a diverse and an evolving population in this country. It just can't happen. And you have other people scared of black people because of what they see on TV. The media demonizes us. It's just too much. It's just too much. And then people don't understand the uprisings. People don't understand the looting. Well, let me explain the looting. Well, what did Christopher Columbus do? He taught people how to loot because he looted the lands of indigenous people, right? So if we learn the lessons from looting, we learn it from Europeans in this country. But you also have this American dream and this capitalism where you tell people that you need to ride around in a BMW or in a Mercedes, and you need to have this type of house, and you need to wear these type of clothes with these labels and these names. But you've done everything to block them from earning that type of income to buy the things that America says it values in terms of capitalism. So when you don't fund their schools, when you take essential programming out, like art and music and vocational education out of their schools, you continue to deficit. When you I think I said underfund, but add underfund if I didn't say that. You do that, right? When things are constantly unbalanced and unequitable, you force people to want the things that they keep seeing on TV or social media. And then you have people in magazines and TV, like around Christmas time, everybody gets a new Lexus wrapped up in a ribbon, and the snow is falling and in front of this big house. So what you do is subliminally, you tell people, this is what you're supposed to have, and people will look happy like the people in the commercials do. So now we force people into these predicaments because we have COVID. People were getting unemployment on time. People were getting delayed with the stimulus payment. People lost jobs. People's time, if they were working, hours were cut. So you push people into a corner. And now when all hell breaks loose, you mad the hell broke loose. But you lit the fire. Like, you poured gasoline over all this, and now you're mad that hell broke loose. It can't be both things. And then you have people looking like, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with them is America. It's America. And the things that America values, but also is inequitable for people to ascertain as you told them these things were of a value. So, we have to be really truthful about really what's happening. We can no longer have this one-sided story where it has a very Eurocentric perspective and not bringing the perspectives of Latinas and Black people in this country and Indigenous people in this country. Because, and I'm saying these three groups of people primarily simply because we have been the hardest hit, most devastating hit in this country. So unless we are bringing in these other perspectives, I don't want to hear any more about European ideologies and views, because we've learned about them the moment we stepped into school, and even before we stepped into school. Because we have toddlers who even realize they see stuff on TV. But why can't I have it? That little kid have. And even if they don't have the wording for it, they see it, even without having the vocabulary for it. They see it. And so this all has to come to the ground. It all has to, really burn to the ground and start over, because it is so many wrongs built on the foundation of this country that you can't repair all 400 plus years of atrocities and inequities and like that. You just can't. You just can't.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered the question, but that's what
Girl, you took us around the world and back. I asked for an education and you provided that. Thank you for providing such an impassioned rendition of your experience, what you've learned, what you're seeing, what you're living with day to day. Not only through your own eyes, through your own life, but through your students and just everything around you. What's going on in this country, what's going on right now. I want to segue you into a different direction. I told you about the deep five, so we're going to go there. There's nothing about this program that isn't deep, so we're gonna go even deeper. Just in a different direction. So starting with the first question, what is a life lesson that you have had to learn the hard way?
Life lesson I had to learn the hard way. Which one?
Give me one, because
No, I gotta
there's
think
probably many.
yeah, like every experience is a lesson, but it's definitely those lessons that keep returning to the ones you have to learn because you didn't learn the first time. And oh my goodness. Okay, life lesson that I had to, Jesus. I guess I'll pull this one out. I guess, I don't know. The lesson of understanding the power of my voice and not being free and fearless about using it. And I think as women, we have always been kind of told to be seen and not heard. Um, you know, sit with your hands folded, keep your legs crossed, and your skirt down, and just listen.
I could so relate to that. I could
And
so relate to that as someone that really didn't understand about the power of my own voice and feeling safe to be able to speak up until much later in life.
mm-hmm. So yeah, that would probably be the lesson. Is just the power of my voice and building, coming out of childhood into adults. Like every chapter or every chapter of our life became even more empowering. To use it to understand the strength and the power that it has on yourself, but also on people and those influences that it can have and the messages that you can give. And even about just sharing your story or sharing your vulnerabilities, how that can be a pathway to healing for someone else. So I would probably say that has been one of the biggest life lessons, and just being comfortable, especially when the world, especially in a very patriarchal world where it tells you that women shouldn't talk. Women don't have an opinion. And I'm going to say women and girls because even as a child, we have 10, and I don't none of them look young kids anymore, but I know growing up as a girl, like you just weren't supposed to have many thoughts and opinions. It was okay to have thoughts about the books you were supposed to read, but you weren't supposed to have thoughts and opinions about what you seen in front of you or anything that adults were doing. You weren't supposed to have a thought, an opinion, or nor was you supposed to really question it. And I think that has been a huge era in the thinking of women and how women have so many womb scars because we hold all these things in and taking all the things that we've seen our mothers experience or our grandmothers experience or other women in our lives and their experience, and they're held in our womb. And our womb is very beneficial and important to us because that's where we give life at. And when we give life to those insecurities and those traumas and to those hurts and those scars and those pains and all of those things. We give life to that too without not even recognizing that we are birthing the same toxicity that we ingested and no one knew to help us heal, right? So it becomes like important for us to heal these wounds so that we can kind of break generational curses and hurts.
Yes.
And not pass them down to our daughters and our
generational karmic wounds.
Exactly. And that piece has been powerful. So being able to use the voice and to share amongst other women and sisters, and being comfortable and confident to share your vulnerabilities, because that's a hard thing to do. because we live in a world of imperfect people, and imperfect people judge, right? So to be vulnerable is also it makes you feel powerless, but it's also very powerful. And once we do that, our voices then even amplify even more, because they don't amplify that way. They amplify here, inward, right? For you and for that other person, because you've shared literally a part of you. And when you share a part of you, you start removing scabs in your wounds from the pain and the scars that you had, those wounds in your womb, you start to remove them. So yeah, that's powerful.
Thank you. That's beautiful. So second question, what is the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Oh my God, these are tough questions.
Yes.
The hardest thing I ever did. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my goodness, I don't even know the challenges.
Promise to deliver, so bring goodness. Bring on the juices, bring it on.
Oh, listen, challenges. It's like you got to go through chapters in your life, and what challenges do you pull through? You know what? I got it. Duh. All right. So in 2014, the end of 2013, December 26, 2013 to be exact, my mother went in for surgery for her second heart valve replacement. And from that point on, she never really healed or recovered from that. So 2014 was a very traumatic, hard and challenging year for me. Let me backtrack. December of 2013, I had a dream. I kept having these dreams about this wolf, and I didn't know what they meant. I went to my spiritual mentor and told him what was going on. I was really kind of disenchanted with education. I was ready to leave, but I kept seeing this wolf. The wolf, I was never scared. I was never intimidated, but I could just see the face of the wolf. It wasn't there to harm me. It kind of had like this white light in the back of it, and he was teaching me about spirit animals and what the wolf symbolized, and it symbolized a teacher, but it also symbolizes protecting your pack and so forth. So I say all that day December, and then December my mother's surgery, and then going into 2014, I was scheduled to take a sabbatical. At the end of January 31st was going to be my last day of work to take my sabbatical. My mom was in the hospital from the surgery like 3 weeks. She came home for like 2 days. She'd go back in the hospital, and it had just been this trend on and on and on and on. I was also starting my doctoral program like March of 2014. February 24th, I was in a car accident. It flipped over. Once I came out of it, I counted my toes, I counted my fingers, I put my hands all over my body, came back up, there was no blood. I could hear people in the back like, she couldn't have made it, she couldn't have made it. And I'm like, I made it. I call my husband, and I'm shouting like, we're getting you help, we're getting you help. I remember, the ambulance and the fire department people coming, and they were contemplating how to get me out. They were smelling oil, and they didn't know if it was going to ignite, and so forth and so forth. And I could just hear. And they said, we're going to have to bust the window. And I said, oh, they put a blanket over me. I'm underneath the car, upside down. Put a blanket over and bust out the windows. They still trying to figure out how to get me out. I said, listen, I called the cop over. He comes back. I said, let me help you help me. And this is another example why fitness is so important. Because I have been exercising now like 5 years. I'm stronger, I'm thinner, I'm lighter, everything. I said, I tell him what I wanted. I said, all I need is your hand. I will take my leg over the steering wheel and I will walk out this window because they have busted the window already. So I can get out. Oh, we don't know. We might check your neck, but that might not be safe. And so I still sit upside down and come back checking on me, just hanging there. And then he stays with me. They finally get my husband on the phone, and I'm not too far. I'm like literally like 2 minutes from home. And I don't think they let him close to the car because they don't know what the car is going to do. And I'm like, I'm okay. Like, he's calling my name. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. So he comes back and said, please, just let me help you help me. So I told him again what I wanted to do. He said, let me go ask my supervisor or whoever he's supposed to ask. The guy gave him permission. I had a blanket over me. They had made sure they cleared off the glass, the edges. I put my leg, I'm literally upside down in the car. I was a contortionist. I put my leg over the steering wheel. I grabbed his hand and I pushed and he pulled, and I walked away out of that car accident with not a scar, no bleeding. I went to the hospital for observation, vision check, but wow. I walked out of that and people were absolutely amazed.
That was some years.
So, I say all that, I'm not even finished yet, right? That's just February 24th of 2014. I'm not even finished. So, at that particular time, my mom wasn't in the hospital. Everybody comes to the hospital. I'm okay. They check me. They put me on things just to make sure I'm okay. I go home. Doctor says, don't drive for a couple of weeks. We want to make sure, like, the tests come back normal. Fine. I'm on sabbatical at this point. So I'm good. I'm getting ready to start school. I'm still like I'm a trainer and a fitness coach at this time. So I took a couple of days off, but then I take the train and just go to the gym and train and come back. So I'm not driving, but I'm still active. And my mom then goes back and forth in the hospital. April 27th, my uncle dies. My mom is still back and forth in the hospital, but she's home. We're doing work in her house. We have like the family come back over for the repast. Okay, we go back and forth. My mom actually gets worse, and now she really can't like she's there. She goes to the hospital. She's there for 2 weeks. She's home for 1 day or 2 days. She's back in the hospital. And now at this point, it's this continuous roll of her back and forth in the hospital. I think by the time September came, the fire department had to bust down the door to get out because she wasn't responding to my aunt, and nobody could, she just wasn't answering. And that's not my mother. So that I run out of school, I leave, I go to the hospital. I'm sorry, this is October at this point. October 17th, they was like, there's pretty much at this point nothing they could do for my mother. So, she was in the ER. They took her upstairs but they really couldn't do anything. So one of the hardest things, as being the oldest child, and my brother saying, Angie, whatever you got to do, and my aunt, who is my mom's only sister, was like, you her daughter, because I'm looking at my aunt to make a decision, and she looking at me like, no, that's your mother. You do that. So I have to suck this up because now I have to make a decision. My little sister, who and I are 17 years apart, she went to college in Florida. She came to Florida. She didn't want to be here, but she was kind of hesitant to leave because my mom was sick. My mom was like, don't be nowhere that you're not happy. Go to Florida. I'll be okay. So she goes back to Florida. And so I have to think about how I tell my sister this, who is absolutely sensitive and will cry and cry and cry and cry. And being 1,100 miles away, it needed to be done, a way where I knew somebody was going to be with her to help her through that. My husband is always, always, always my rock. He's there as well. And I have to make a decision about what I want to do, but I know what my mom already wanted. My mom did not want to be on life support. Like, she just absolutely didn't. So by the time they made a decision that we was going to do it, I asked them to give us some time. And one of the most beautiful things we were able to do is we played the music that my mother loved, and we sang and we danced and we reminisced. And I played songs that I had like connections with my mom, and I danced with her as a little girl, and just things growing. And my brother did the same thing, and we sang like, "Mom, this is your song. I know you can hear it." And we did all of those things. And you know, I got my sister on the phone, and you know, wherever she's live on the phone, because I had to, you know, get the breakdown, but I had to make sure that, you know, she's still crying. But we do all of that. This whole ritual happens, and then when we say it's time, I have my hand on my mom's hand as she lays there, and as the machine decreases, her energy leaves her body and it trickles down her arm to my hand and then trickle up my shoulder. And even though that was like really, really sad, it was really, really powerful. Like, this whole spiritual, energetic connection. Like, my mom is always going to be with me just because of how that energy radiated up, left her body and went into mine. And so even though it was really challenging, it was very beautiful at the same time. So, and then, you know, like, Aunt is like, well, you got to make the funeral arrangements and you got to do it. I'm like, okay. So I give what I believe. My brother's like, whatever you say, whatever you do. And I'm just so, and I'm also very grateful and blessed that I have a family that just didn't fight about stuff, right? And I'm happy and grateful for that. So my mom, her style was like African bohemian. So I made sure she had a mother cloth dress on that she loves. She had these red cowboy boots. So we put them cowboy boots on her, her mud cloth. I put her in her jewelry. Like, my mom wasn't a big flower person, but she was a big plant person. So I made sure that the funeral, like the church, had lots of plants in it because my mother was a plant person. My joy and love of plants came from my mom. She like, you got to talk to the plants because they're human, they're beings and their energy and they're about life. So you talk, so things that I've just, you know, my mom. So we just plants. You know, she has on her cowrie shell earrings and ring and the dress and her cowboy hat and her cowboy boots and a mudcloth hat. And the biggest compliment is that your mom looked like your mom walking down the street the way you had her dressed. I refused to put her in one of the funeral home dresses because my mom would never, ever, ever, ever wear any of that, period, right? Yeah. So the compliment, it was beautiful simply for the fact that she looked like her leaving. And the other joy of it is that when I turned around, the church was standing room only. The number of people that loved my mom. Wow. I mean, people will walk up and they're like, "Hey, mom." I'm like, "Who that's?" Like, I don't know. They just call my mom. I'm like, "Hey, baby," and she goes that. Or they like, "Hey, grandma." I'm like, "Who's that?" I don't know. This is a little kid that live over there. But so many people love my mom, and to see all these people in the room was a testament to her life. So despite that it was a very sad and difficult moment, it also was a very beautiful and peaceful and joyous moment because we actually celebrated, people came to celebrate her life, and I'm really internally grateful for that. But I'm so spiritually grateful for the energetic connection. And I'm grateful that I have a family that just didn't nitpick every little thing. And, you know, my brother and sister said, mommy look like mommy, and you did good. And that's really all that mattered. Like, my siblings were happy, my aunt was happy, and I that to me was like, okay, signified that my mom would be okay with what I had to
Type of thing.
decide to do. So that was probably the hardest,
Wow.
the hardest year, the hardest thing to do. But it also was the most spiritual life lesson in my life that year. So much had happened. Oh, and also my great aunt passed away that year too. So
Wow.
it was just,
A year of a
yeah,
lot of tribulations, but a lot of teachings as well, right?
absolutely. As I said earlier, every experience is a lesson. Is how you do. Do you reflect and see how it's a lesson, or you just move on and just say this happened? But everything is a lesson. Everything that we encounter is a lesson. It's just a matter of us taking on and realizing what the lesson is. Yeah. So
So
yeah,
next
that was my hardest.
question, we're gonna need another episode. It's gonna be the Angie show. So we're gonna continue to go deep. So the next question is, what legacy do you want people to remember you for?
Okay, that was easier. Okay. I think the legacy that I want people to remember me for, primarily, first and foremost, my family, my children, um, is this absolutely unapologetically loving who you are, loving the skin you in, loving the culture that we come from, just absolutely unapologetically loving it, and being an advocate to speak up about it. I want the legacy of education to be a part of me, because it doesn't matter if I'm in the classroom or not in the classroom. I have been teaching all of my life in some form or fashion, formally or informally. I've been teaching. I want the legacy of family. I'm a ride or die for my family. Like, don't come from a family, like, just don't. We small, like my immediate family and my mother's side, we're small but we mighty. But don't come from a family, because too, that's very much embedded in lessons I learned from my grandmother.
Yeah.
And because I pay so much homage and tribute to my grandmother, that's automatically a legacy. And, one of the reasons I'm even getting this doctorate degree is because of my grandmother. My grandmother was the oldest child, and she had to stop school in the 6th grade to help work the farm so that they can eat. Her father had died, and until my great grandmother got remarried, they had to figure out how to survive. So my grandmother had to stop school, and her 2 sisters were able to finish school. And the sacrifices that my grandmother um, made just for them, the sacrifices that, like the sacrifices that she made for her grandchildren. My mom, my parents were in a very violent kind of marriage. And when my mom left, we came to my grandmother, and my grandmother has always been my refuge, emotionally and physically. Her home was always a refuge. And the sacrifices she made as a grandmother, just to make sure that school continued. And at that time I was in Catholic school, that school continued, that we were loved and nurtured and taken care for, that compensated for income when my mom didn't have it or have enough. And the same for my aunt who doesn't have any children. We have, my brother and I, my sister came so much later, but my brother and I, those 3 women kind of simultaneously made sure the 2 of us were together, in just in our aspects of our life. And You know, my grandmother always just said, never stop learning, go as far as you can. If I had the opportunity to go to school, I would be better. Like my grandmother worked, like she did piecemeal work, and in factories where were closed. So you had to do so many pieces to get so much money. And I remember like even going through and looking at some of her checks, $38 a week, $63 a week, $89 a week, $106 a week. And I'm like, how did they buy one house, her and my grandfather, and then left the house and bought another house? Like, how do you even buy a house and raise children on nothing? And no one ever went hungry. The house was always clean. It was furnished. Like, how did you do that? It's amazing. And she just said, never stop learning. And her life lessons were like, she had a Ph.D. in life and the wisdom. And so this doctorate degree is really a honorary degree for me, but this degree is for her and her sacrifices. So people say, what do you want to do professionally with this degree? I'm like, that's never been my thought. That's never my reason for doing this. And it really is to pay honor and homage to my grandmother who desperately wanted to be educated, but could not, and just always sacrificed and pushed and, insisted on the value of education. So yeah.
That's so beautiful.
I don't even know it was the original part of the question, but I went there because it had to push me there. But legacy. So yeah, legacy of family and education and loving yourself and knowledge. And I learned those lessons from my aunt. My aunt didn't have any children, but she was just so deeply embedded in African and Black culture that I learned so much from her, and her taking me to like the Schomburg Institute in New York and to plays and to different festivals. Those things, the love of Blackness comes from my aunt. So the three matriarchs in my life have contributed in so many different ways, but holistically make me up who I am today.
Awesome. Well, we're almost through the home stretch.
Okay.
The next one should be pretty easy. What is your favorite motivational or inspirational quote?
That's not easy.
Girl,
listen,
are we going to be here all night?
As an English teacher, I love quotes. Love quotes. I love quotes.
I love quotes too. That's why I made that one of my questions.
Yeah, but for the English teacher, I'm like, I can't answer that question. Honestly, I don't think I have a favorite quote. I guess it really depends on what's happening, what's going on.
Okay.
Because listen, even for my opening activities at school, it's always a quote for children to analyze and connect and make connections to.
Awesome.
So I do quotes every single time.
Yes, fact. That's okay. But, I don't think I have a favorite. I like too many of them.
I like too many, but I will share. Let me try to pull this one up. I will share one since I came on the line talking about education first and foremost. But I have a couple, and one of my favorite writers is James Baldwin. The paradox of education is precisely that as one begins to become conscious, one begins to examine the society in which he is being educated, right? Because, sit on that for a minute, right? And how deep that is. And then the other one is by Angela Davis, who is also the person that I am named after as well. Hold on, because I know about her, but I definitely don't want to misquoted at all, because I do not want Angela to come and chastise me for misquoting this quote. So the quote is, when children attend schools that place a greater value on discipline and security than on knowledge and intellectual development, they are attending prep schools for prison. And I find both of those quotes to be extremely powerful as an educator. And I brought them up because of the climate that we're in right now in the world, across the country. And being an educator and talking about institutionalized racism, we have to then talk about education systems. And I think Baldwin and Davis quotes are extremely powerful in making us kind of consciously think about our education system and what society is doing to children. So I would say I love those two, but I have many more favorite quotes. But in light of how I started this conversation about school, I'll keep it around education.
Great. So the last one is, what's one thing you want to share with our sisterhood?
Oh God, man, that's hard. One thing. Whew. Okay. One thing, and it's probably just a reminder to open your hearts, open your mind, offer non-judgment listening, active listening. Your opinion is not always necessary. Be uplifting. Speak truth. But speak truth from a very humanizing stance. Because sometimes what we think is happening as women, sometimes what we do is we coddle each other. And it's okay to love and support each other and embrace each other. But coddling doesn't give us the inner strength that we need to face the challenge and move forward. So it is okay to speak truth, but your truth should not be projected as harshness. Your truth should be spoken with a level of care and from a place of love. Be willing to share your vulnerabilities. Be willing to uplift each other and embrace each other. So again, I think those are just reminders, but I think sometimes we need reminding because as imperfect human beings, we have imperfect moments that we engage in, and to always be reflective. And if you messed up at one moment and you reflect upon it, it's okay to apologize.
Yeah.
And it's always, always, always the right occasion to work on being a better you. Work starts with you. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sister, for being here. Thank you for sharing your mind, for sharing your heart and your soul with us, for God just teaching us, giving us a perspective, sharing your experiences with us. And to everyone who's watching and listening, thank you for hanging on. This was definitely an experience for all of us. Please like, share, review, share with all of our, your sisters who might be interested in this, who are passionate about education, who are passionate about, what's going on in our country, and who want to proactively promote and do something about racism and, bring us forward into the future, into a better future of love and acceptance, embracing our differences, Thank you for being here. You were watching and listening to Diving Deep with Denise. Take care, and I'll see you soon.